Ethan Cole was a quiet man living alone on Mars Colony 9. He was a systems engineer, a genius with machines but terrible with people. His days were filled with the hum of computers, the hiss of oxygen filters, and the endless red dust blowing outside the colony dome. The colony had only 12 humans left after the last supply ship stopped coming. Earth had gone silent months ago. Nobody knew why. The stars looked peaceful, but something out there had gone wrong. One night, Ethan sat in the observatory, staring at the stars through the thick glass. He felt tired and lonely. The silence of Mars was heavy, like it was pressing on his chest. He looked at the stars and spoke softly, half joking, half wishing. "If anyone's listening out there, send me a wife. I'm tired of talking to robots." He laughed at his own words. The communication system gave a faint crackle, but there was no answer. He shook his head. "Yeah, sure, a wife from space," he muttered. "Good one, Ethan." Then the lights flickered. At first he thought it was a power surge. But then the air began to hum, a deep vibration that made his bones tremble. The monitors glitched, showing strange symbols that weren't human code. System error, unknown signal detected. The red sky outside turned white for a second. A blinding light split the horizon. Ethan's jaw dropped as a swirling portal opened right above the dome. Like a tear in reality itself. From the heart of that light, something fell. He rushed outside in his pressure suit, his boots sinking into red dust. The portal vanished, leaving behind a crater. Inside it, something moved. A figure, tall, graceful, and glowing faintly with red light, stood up slowly. Ethan's voice shook.
"What the hell?"
The figure looked at him. A woman. Her eyes glowed like blood under glass. Her skin was pale as moonlight, her armor dark and sharp, glowing with crimson energy veins. Her long black hair floated as if gravity had forgotten her. She stepped forward, her voice smooth and calm, but filled with power. "Who calls for a bride from beyond the stars?" Ethan froze. "Wait, you can talk?" "I heard your call, human," she said, walking closer. "And I answered." He backed away, shaking his head. "Hold on, that was a joke." "I didn't mean it." Her gaze locked on him. "Words have power across the realms. You summoned me through your wish. Now we are bound." Ethan tried to run, but his body went numb. Her hand touched his chest, and a sharp jolt of energy surged through him. His vision blurred. He saw flashes, a world of darkness, castles under red suns, armies of winged beings flying through storms. Then it all stopped. He fell to his knees, gasping. Who are you?" She smiled slightly, her eyes glowing brighter. "I am Queen Lysandra of the Crimson Realm. I am a vampire queen. And you are my chosen one." The words hit him like a hammer. "Vampire?" She tilted her head, curious. "You humans still remember that word. Good. It saves me an explanation." Before Ethan could speak again, the colony alarm screamed. "Warning!" Unknown entity detected inside the perimeter. Red lights flashed across the dome. The AI voice continued. "Containment breach." "Containment breach." Lysandra looked around calmly. "Your machines are afraid. They sense my energy." Ethan grabbed his communicator. "Security team, respond." There's something here." No response. Only static. Lysandra moved closer, her eyes softening. "You need not fear me, human. You called me. You belong to me now." Ethan stepped back. "No, I don't belong to anyone." Her smile faded. For the first time she looked hurt. Then the power flickered again. The walls trembled. Outside the dome, the sand rose high like a storm. But it wasn't wind. It was magnetic force pulling from her. She seemed confused, as if she didn't know her own power. Ethan ran to the control panel, trying to stabilize the system. "You're overloading everything," he shouted. She whispered almost to herself, "I am trapped." The portal above them had vanished completely. She looked at him, anger and sadness mixing in her expression. "You sealed the gate when you called me." "I cannot return." Ethan stared at her, heart pounding. "What do you mean, sealed?" "I didn't do anything." She turned her eyes toward the stars. "Then we are both prisoners now." The lights finally dimmed, the alarm stopped. Only silence remained, the kind that makes your ears ring. Ethan stood there, breathing hard. A real vampire queen was standing in his colony. She wasn't a dream, she wasn't human, and somehow, she was connected to him. He looked at her again. "So what happens now?" She turned slowly, her red eyes glowing brighter in the dark. "Now," she said softly, You learn what happens when you joke with destiny. The camera would zoom out, showing the red planet under a blood-tinted sky. The last thing the audience hears is the AI voice repeating, "Unidentified energy signature remains active. Warning, unknown life form adapting." Fade to black. The alarm stopped, but silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, waiting. Ethan stood across the lab from Lysandra, still trying to understand if he was awake or dreaming. The strange woman, no, the queen, looked around the Mars colony like a lioness studying her cage. Her glowing armor slowly dimmed until only faint red lines pulsed across it. Her eyes scanned the screens filled with human symbols she didn't understand. Ethan finally spoke. You can't stay here. The colony isn't safe for whatever you are." Lysandra smiled faintly. "Whatever I am has already been inside your world for centuries, human. You just stopped believing." He ignored the chill her words brought. "You said you're a vampire, but there's no blood here. No humans left except us. How do you—" She turned to him, the glow in her chest brightening. "I do not feed on blood. My kind evolved beyond that long ago. We drink light, the energy of stars." Ethan blinked. "You mean radiation?" She smiled again, sharper this time. "You call it radiation. I call it life." Without warning, she placed her hand on the nearby reactor wall. The power level spiked. The metal glowed red. "Stop!" Ethan shouted. "You'll blow the whole system." But she didn't stop. Instead, her armor began to heal itself, small cracks mending as energy pulsed through her veins. Then she pulled her hand away, calm again. "The taste of your machine's light is strange," she said softly. "Cold, artificial, but it will keep me alive. For now." Ethan's heart raced as he checked the monitor. The reactor had lost 12% of its energy. "You can't just drain power like that." "It's all that keeps us alive here." Lysandra's expression changed. For a moment, she looked ashamed. "I will control it. I did not mean harm." Ethan sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Right. You didn't mean harm, you just nearly cooked us." Her gaze turned distant. "In my world, energy is life and war. We feed, we fight, we rule. I escaped because I was tired of it. But now I'm trapped in another cage." He looked up at her. "You mean that portal?" She nodded. "The portal connects worlds through emotion. You wished for a bride. It was a foolish call, but pure. That wish carried power. It reached my realm. It bound me to you." Ethan laughed nervously. "So, I joked, and now you're stuck here with me because the universe has a weird sense of humor?" Lysandra tilted her head. "Something like that." He studied her, trying to understand. "And what happens to me in this bond thing?" Her eyes flickered. When the call was made, it took energy from both sides. "Your life force is tied to mine now." Ethan froze. "Wait, tied how?" "If I die," she said quietly, "so do you." The silence hit harder than the Martian wind. Ethan stared at her. "You're saying I can't get rid of you?" She gave a small, sad smile. "Nor I of you." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of machines filled the air, a soft mechanical heartbeat. Then the computer broke the silence. "New signal detected." "Deep space transmission incoming," Ethan frowned. "That's impossible. Earth hasn't sent anything in months." Lysandra's head snapped toward the screen. "That is not from your Earth." The signal grew stronger, a strange pulse of sound, like whispers inside the static. The words were impossible to understand, but they made Lysandra's face go pale. "What is it?" Ethan asked. Her voice was low, shaken. "A call from my realm. They are searching for me." The signal turned into a repeating pattern. 3 long pulses, 2 short, 1 long. Lysandra's eyes widened. "That's the blood code. It means return or be taken by force." Ethan looked at the screen. "They can open another portal?" She nodded slowly. "If they find me, they will. But this world will not survive their coming." Ethan grabbed his communicator. "Then we have to shut the signal down." He started typing commands, but the signal kept adapting, rewriting the code faster than he could stop it. Lysandra stepped closer, her hand hovering near the panel. "Let me try." She pressed her palm against the glass, and her eyes flared red. The monitors glowed with ancient symbols that didn't belong to human language. For a moment, everything went still, then the signal vanished. Ethan sighed with relief. "You did it," but Lysandra didn't answer. She staggered slightly, her glow dimming. "It's too late," she whispered. "They have found me." Ethan stared at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the radar. Outside, Mars' night sky flickered with strange lights. "Because," she said, her voice trembling. Those are not stars. Ethan looked up at the screen and froze. 6 red dots appeared above Mars, growing larger by the second. Each dot pulsed like a heartbeat. Each one carried energy readings beyond anything the colony had ever recorded. Are those ships? Ethan asked. Lysandra's face turned cold. They are generals of my realm. They come to bring their queen home. The final line on the screen appeared in glowing red text. Incoming portals detected. Orbital breach. Imminent. Ethan swallowed hard. Lysandra, what are we supposed to do now? She looked at him with calm, deadly eyes. You asked for a bride, she whispered. Now you must fight for her. The colony was quiet, but the sky was bleeding. 6 red lights hung above Mars, growing larger each minute. Ethan stared at the radar screen, his throat dry. Each light pulsed like a living heart, slow, steady, and angry. Lysandra stood beside him, her eyes locked on the sky. The red glow from the radar reflected off her pale face. They're here, she whispered. My generals. The Blood Armada, Ethan swallowed. They're coming for you? She nodded slowly. And they will destroy everything in their way to get me back. He turned to her. Then we need to hide. Go underground. The colony's tunnels go deep. She cut him off. They can smell energy, human. Even in darkness, they will find me. Ethan clenched his fists. You said they're your people. Maybe they'll listen to you. Her eyes glowed brighter. They do not listen. They obey only blood commands, and I broke mine when I ran from their king. The alarms began to wail again. Orbital disturbance detected. Unidentified energy signatures approaching atmosphere. Ethan rushed to the console, his hands shaking. The screens filled with red static. He tapped a few keys, trying to open a channel. Colony Command, this is Mars Station 9. We have unknown ships inbound. Repeat, unknown ships. Static answered back. Then a deep voice broke through, cold and metallic. Return the Queen or your red world will burn. Ethan froze. Was that? Yes, Lysandra said quietly. That was General Varric. The ground trembled. Outside, lightning struck across the Martian horizon. Not from the sky, but from the ships above. They weren't just entering orbit. They were tearing through it. Ethan turned to Lysandra. If they're that strong, how can we stop them? She looked at him with eyes full of both fire and regret. We can't stop them. We can only prepare. She walked toward the lab's energy core, placing her hand over it again. The red light pulsed under her palm. Ethan shouted, Stop draining the power. We need that! She shook her head. I'm not taking it this time. I'm sharing mine. The lights flickered, but instead of dimming, they brightened. The entire colony seemed to breathe again, power returning stronger than before. Ethan stared. What did you do? Lysandra smiled faintly. I linked my energy with your machines. They will resist for a while when the attack begins. Ethan couldn't believe it. You powered up the colony? Yes, she said softly. Even a queen must protect her home, wherever it is. Before he could reply, the colony shook violently. One of the incoming ships entered the atmosphere, fire trailing behind it. It crashed near the horizon, sending a shockwave across the red desert. The AI voice screamed, Impact detected. External damage to dome structure. Containment breach imminent. Ethan grabbed a plasma rifle from the emergency locker, the colony's only real weapon. He looked at Lysandra. You said they'd come for you. Then they'll have to go through me first. Lysandra looked at him, surprised, then almost touched. You would fight for me? Ethan nodded. You're my problem now, remember? A rare smile crossed her face. Then let's fight together. They moved to the observation deck. Outside, dust storms swirled like living things. Through the chaos, figures appeared, tall, armored, glowing with red light. Their armor looked alive, shifting like smoke. Lysandra whispered, Varric. The lid figure stepped forward, his voice echoing in Ethan's mind. My queen, you disgrace your lineage. Come home. Lysandra raised her chin. I am done living under the blood throne. Varric's voice deepened. Then you will die with your human pet. Ethan aimed his rifle, but Varric moved faster than the eye could see. In one blink, he was standing inside the dome. The air cracked as his body phased through the wall. Ethan fired. The plasma shot hit Varric's armor, leaving a glowing mark that healed instantly. Varric grabbed Ethan by the throat, lifting him off the floor. Weak, just flesh and fear, Lysandra shouted, her voice shaking the walls. Let him go! Energy erupted from her hand. a beam of crimson light that struck Varric, throwing him across the room. The glass cracked but didn't break. Varric stood, smiling. "Still strong, my queen, but love has made you slow." Lysandra stepped closer. "Love makes me dangerous." They clashed, two forces of red energy swirling like fire and shadow. The colony groaned under their power. Ethan crawled back, his vision filled with flashing light and smoke. Then he saw something. The energy meters on the control screen spiking higher than ever. He shouted, "Lysandra, stop!" "The reactor can't take it." But she couldn't hear him. Her scream turned into a roar of energy, the kind no human should ever hear. The blast wave threw Ethan against the wall. His vision blurred. The world turned white for a moment, and then black. When he opened his eyes again, everything was silent. The dust had settled. The red lights in the sky were gone. Varric's body was nowhere to be seen. Only Lysandra stood in the middle of the room, breathing heavily, her armor cracked and flickering. Ethan crawled toward her. "You did it. You stopped him." She looked down at him with tired eyes. "No, Ethan, he isn't dead. None of them die so easily," he frowned. "Then where is he?" She turned toward the sky. He retreated, but not in defeat. "He's gone to open the blood gate. When it opens, the king himself will come." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. "The king?" Lysandra nodded slowly. "The one I escaped from. The one who rules the Crimson Realm." She looked at him with sadness and fear. "If he crosses into this world, Mars will burn." The night sky over Mars was no longer red. It was burning. Crimson lightning cracked across the thin atmosphere, painting the horizon in fire. Ethan stood at the edge of the cracked observation deck, staring upward as 6 massive portals opened above the planet. Each portal pulsed like a dark sun, and from them came shadows with wings. Lysandra stood beside him, her face pale and unreadable. "They're not just soldiers," she whispered. "They are the Armada. The king has sent his full power." Ethan's voice shook. "You said he was coming, but this looks like a war." Lysandra turned to him. "It is a war. One I started the moment I ran from his throne." She walked to the central console, her boots echoing in the quiet room. "If we don't act now, Mars won't last a day." Ethan followed her, still clutching the plasma rifle. "We can't fight a fleet. We don't even have working satellites anymore." Lysandra pressed her hand to the holographic map. "We don't fight them all. We destroy the gate." The image changed. One of the 6 portals was larger than the rest, pulsing with stronger energy. "That one," she said, pointing. "It's the main channel. The king will come through it himself." Ethan stared at the glowing symbol. "If we destroy it? It will close the path between our worlds, but it could also trap us both here forever," she replied softly. Ethan thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "I was already trapped before you showed up." She looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "Before all this," he said, "Mars felt like a cage. Dead sky, broken systems, no one left to talk to. Now at least I have something to fight for." For the first time, Lysandra's cold eyes softened. "You're a strange human, Ethan Cole." "Yeah," he said, loading the rifle. "I get that a lot." Outside the colony, the ground trembled. The first of the Armada ships landed, their hulls glowing red-hot from re-entry. They were alive, breathing metal beasts shaped like swords and bones. The air shimmered with their heat. Hundreds of vampire warriors marched out, their armor pulsing with the same red energy as Lysandra's veins. At their front walked General Varric, his armor cracked but his eyes burning brighter than ever. He raised his weapon, then a long, curved blade of light. "By the order of the Blood King, surrender the traitor queen." Lysandra stepped out through the cracked dome, her cape of black energy flowing behind her. "I no longer serve your king, Varric." Varric smirked. "Then you serve your grave." With a wave of his hand, the vampires moved forward, silent, deadly. Inside the lab, Ethan activated the colony's defense systems. Old turrets rose from the ground, rusty and forgotten. He shouted over the comms, "Come on, baby, work." The screens lit up, defense grid online. Metal guns aimed at the enemy army. Ethan smiled. "That's more like it." Outside, Lysandra lifted her hand, and a red barrier formed around the colony. Plasma fire hit the shield, bursting into red sparks. She looked back at Ethan through the glass. "Your machines will not hold for long." "Then I guess it's your turn," he shouted. Her smile was cold and beautiful. "Gladly." She leapt into the air, landing among her former warriors. Her body moved faster than sound, her eyes glowing like suns. Every strike she made sent ripples through the air, crushing the ground beneath her feet. Ethan watched through the cameras, amazed. She's fighting an army alone. Lysandra tore through the soldiers with grace and fury. For everyone she destroyed, two more appeared. The desert burned under their power. Then Varric moved, his blade slicing through her shield. She staggered, bleeding bright crimson light. He raised his sword. You were a queen. Now you're just a ghost. Ethan ran from the control room, grabbing his helmet. He raced through the tunnels until he reached the airlock. The door hissed open and he stepped out into the chaos. The heat hit him like a wall. Dust and light filled the sky. He ran toward Lysandra. Ethan, no, she shouted. You'll die here. He raised his rifle and fired, hitting Varric square in the chest. The plasma bolt exploded, throwing the general back a few feet. Lysandra stared at him in shock. Why would you do that? He shouted. Because I'm not letting you fight alone. For a moment she looked at him, not as a human, not as a servant, but as an equal. She turned to Varric. You heard him. We fight together. Their combined attack struck like thunder. Ethan's weapon tore through Varric's armor, while Lysandra unleashed a burst of energy so bright it turned night into day. When the light faded, Varric was gone, burned into the dust, but victory didn't feel like triumph. The ground began to shake again, harder this time. The main portal above Mars grew larger, glowing brighter. Lysandra fell to her knees, weak from using too much power. Ethan rushed to her side. You did it! You stopped him, she shook her head. No, this was just his body. The king is still coming. Ethan looked up. The sky had turned completely red now, the largest portal pulsing like a living wound. He felt a cold wind sweep across the desert, even though Mars had no air. A deep voice echoed through the air, calm and terrifying. My bride, you ran long enough. Lysandra's eyes widened in horror. He's here. Ethan turned to her. Who? She looked at him, her voice trembling. The Vampire King. My husband. The sky over Mars screamed. The great portal above the red desert twisted like a storm of fire, its center glowing white-hot. From that burning light stepped a tall figure, the Vampire King. His armor was black as shadow, edged with silver veins that pulsed like living blood. His eyes burned brighter than all 6 moons of his world combined. Lysandra fell to one knee, not out of fear, but exhaustion. She had spent every drop of her energy fighting her own army. Ethan stood beside her, his rifle trembling in his hands. He looked up at the king and whispered, That's him. Lysandra nodded slowly. The Blood Emperor. He rules the Crimson Realm. No one defies him and lives. The king's voice echoed across the barren plains, smooth but heavy like thunder. My queen, you left your throne to chase a mortal dream. Come home, or Mars will become your grave. Lysandra rose, breathing hard. You call this a homecoming, husband? You sent an army to drag me back in chains. The king tilted his head. Love demands obedience. You were made for me, but instead, you bonded yourself to a human. His gaze turned to Ethan, who felt the air thicken like molten glass. The king smiled coldly. So this is the joke of fate, a weak creature holding the heart of my queen. Ethan took a step forward. She's not your property. The king's voice darkened. You dare speak to me, mortal? Lysandra raised her arm. Enough, you want me? Then face me, not him. The Vampire King's smile grew. Very well. He lifted one hand and the ground split open. Crimson lightning struck from the sky, forming glowing cracks across the desert. His army, millions of red-eyed soldiers, rose again from the dust, reborn by his power. Ethan whispered, We can't win this. Lysandra looked at him, fire burning behind her eyes. We can, if we fight together. She touched his chest, the mark of their bond glowing through his suit. I will give you a piece of my power. Ethan gasped as red energy surged through his body. His eyes flashed for a second, veins lighting up like lava. The plasma rifle in his hands pulsed brighter. What did you do to me? He shouted. I shared my bloodlight, she said. Now fight as one of us. The battle began. The king's army charged, wings cutting through the red sky. Ethan fired, each shot exploding with new strength. Lysandra flew into the air, her sword of light slicing through the swarm. Together they fought like one heartbeat, human and vampire moving in perfect rhythm. Ethan aimed while she defended. She struck while he reloaded. Explosions thundered across the colony as the defense turrets fired nonstop. But the army was endless. For every enemy they killed, two more emerged from the dust. Ethan shouted over the chaos, "There's too many of them!" Lysandra's voice echoed through the storm. "Then we don't fight them. We fight him." They turned toward the king, who stood calmly in the distance, his cloak fluttering like smoke. Ethan looked at Lysandra. "You said the gate connects your world and ours, right? What happens if we destroy it?" She hesitated. "It will close forever. But the explosion might kill us both." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Then it's worth it." She looked at him for a long second, then nodded. "Very well, husband of fate." They ran through the battlefield, dodging fire and lightning. Ethan's suit cracked under the heat, but he kept moving. The gate loomed ahead, a spinning vortex of red and white energy, taller than a mountain. As they approached, the king appeared before them in a flash of shadow. He struck with blinding speed, his blade cutting through the ground. Ethan was thrown back, landing hard. Lysandra met the king's sword mid-swing. Sparks of red and silver lit the sky. Their voices echoed in rage and sorrow. "You chained me to a throne I never wanted. You were born to rule, not to love." The clash of their blades sent waves of fire rippling across Mars. Ethan tried to crawl closer, his hand reaching for the control panel near the gate. He shouted, "Lysandra, now!" She broke away, flying to his side. Her armor was cracked, her eyes dimming. Together they reached the core control, a glowing sphere of pure light. She looked at him. "If we overload it, the gate will collapse. But we must feed it with power. My power." Ethan grabbed her arm. "That will kill you," she smiled weakly. "Better to die free than live in chains." Before he could stop her, she placed her hand on the core. The red energy surged. The gate screamed as it began to fold inward. The king roared. "No!" He appeared behind her, striking, but Ethan jumped in the way. The blade pierced his chest. Lysandra screamed, her eyes glowing white. "Ethan!" Her energy exploded outward, a storm of red fire and lightning. The king was thrown back, his armor shattering. Ethan collapsed, blood floating in zero gravity as the gate imploded. The light consumed everything: sky, sand, sound. When the world finally went silent, only two figures remained, the king fading into dust, and Lysandra kneeling beside Ethan's motionless body. She held him close, her tears glowing like liquid stars. "You foolish, brave human. You saved me from myself." He smiled faintly, whispering, "Guess I wasn't joking after all, about wanting a wife." Then his eyes closed. The gate shattered, and a bright wave of light swept across Mars. The vampire army vanished. The portals disappeared, silence returned. Only Lysandra's voice broke it. "If destiny can bind us across worlds, then it can bring you back." She kissed his forehead, and the scene faded into red dust under the rising Martian dawn. Mars was silent again. The war had ended. The portals were gone, and the red winds blew softly across the desert plains. But the silence was not peace. It was grief. Lysandra knelt in the dust, holding Ethan's still body. His suit was torn, his face pale under the thin light of the dying sun. She brushed her fingers through his hair, her touch trembling. "Wake up, human," she whispered. "You can't leave now." "You made me believe again." Her voice echoed through the empty colony, bouncing off the broken metal walls. But no answer came. She looked toward the horizon where the gate had once been. All that remained was a glowing crater, pulsing faintly with the last traces of otherworldly energy. It shimmered, as if the universe had left a scar behind. Lysandra stood slowly, her cape of dark energy fluttering in the cold Martian wind. Her eyes glowed faintly red, filled with determination and sorrow. "I will not lose him," she said softly. "Not after all we survived." She lifted Ethan's body in her arms and walked toward the colony's inner chamber, the only place left untouched by the explosion. Hours passed. Lysandra worked silently inside the lab, surrounded by broken machines and flickering lights. She placed Ethan on a med-pod table, connecting wires and crystal tubes. The pod hummed weakly. The systems were too old, the power too low. She closed her eyes and placed her hand over his heart. Her red energy flowed into him, lighting up his veins like fire. But his heartbeat didn't return. Lysandra's voice cracked. "No, please." She fell to her knees. For a queen who had once commanded legions, this was her first defeat that truly mattered. Then, something flickered. The screen beside the pod blinked. Unknown life signal detected. Her eyes widened. Ethan? But the signal wasn't coming from him. It was coming from the crater. Lysandra turned, her body tensing. Outside, the red wind shifted direction, swirling around the ancient scar where the gate had collapsed. A voice, soft and distant, echoed through the storm. Lysandra. She froze. It was Ethan's voice. No, she whispered. It can't be. The voice grew stronger. Lysandra. The light. It's calling me. She looked down at the body in front of her. It was still unmoving, yet his voice was clear in her mind. A cold realization hit her. His soul was trapped between worlds. The gate didn't destroy you, she whispered. It took you.